All right. Hello, everyone. We will get started shortly. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Understanding the Log4j Vulnerability, presented by ArcticWolf. ArcticWolf is the global leader in cybersecurity and security operation, delivering the first cloud-native security operation platform to end the cyber risk. Today, Dan Tyson and I will be discussing the Log4j vulnerability. If you have any question during this webinar, please type them into the comment box in your LinkedIn. We will bring them up end of the presentation, and this 30 minutes webinar will be recorded. So my name is Shula Tatar. I am the product marketing manager here at ArcticWolf. Little bit about myself. Previously, I worked for vulnerability management, backup and disaster recovery company, as well as Salesforce. I hold a bachelor degree in computer engineering as well as MBA. Also, we have today Dan Tyson, who is VP of Security Product R&D at ArcticWolf. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic.
Thanks to everyone that's joining us and is here listening to us as well.
Fantastic. Dan, would you like to share your background as well?
Absolutely, yes. I've been working in the security field now 20 plus years. I've been on the R&D side for a lot of that time, developing novel products and technologies. I've also been on the operational side as well, working for large enterprises, running very large security engineering departments, and building SOCs and running technologies and technology stacks that go into SOCs. A lot of experience in security detection technologies, analytics, and machine learning as well. And I've done this across, I think, more companies now that I can count, across many startups that I've helped start in the area, across large companies like GE, large banks like TD Bank, where I was their CTO of cybersecurity, and many others. I've also done a lot of consulting in the field and a lot of advisory to a lot of security startup companies as well. So yes, I very much have been in the field and loving every day, even when it's hectic during these events.
Yeah, fantastic. And we are so happy to have you here. So today's agenda is straightforward. We will talk about Log4j, and then we are going to talk about the vulnerability itself. We will have a conversation about why it's so dangerous, and then we will navigate through how articles can help. So with that, I'm going to first start with the Log4j. So Log4j is a Java-based logging library maintained by Apache Software Foundation. So software developers would use this Log4j framework to record, user activities or, behaviors of the application to review. So this is one of the most common libraries for logins, so likely to present in millions of Java application. And please, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but in most cases, it's a back-end dependency in many cloud-based services. Because of that, it's kind of embedded in the environment, right?
Yes, it's highly pervasive and ubiquitous. Again, because it's Java, by nature, it's multi-platform and multi-device. It can be found in large backend server systems. You can also find this certainly in certain classes of embedded systems as well.
Mhm.
You're going to find this inside internally developed enterprise applications. Just because it's been around for so long and there's just been so many systems developed with it, it's highly pervasive.
Exactly. So, if I'm not mistaken, this library itself has been around at least 10 years or so, and it has been developed by Mr. Gunji, if I remember correctly. So it's really deeply embedded to applications. So it's very known library. So let's focus on the vulnerability portion of it. So Log4j is a zero-day vulnerability, also known as Log4Shell or CVE 2021 44228. Let's clarify what a zero-day vulnerability is. It's a vulnerability in the system or device that has been disclosed and it's not yet patched. So if exploit that attacks, this zero-day vulnerability, it's called zero-day exploit. So I just want to make sure that people are familiar with those terms. And if you move to the CVSS score, National Vulnerability Database rated this vulnerability as critical and the score of 10. So basically, remote code execution to this vulnerability and unauthenticated people, remote attacker could basically exploit this flow and then send a specific crafted request to a service running a vulnerability version of Log4j. So, and some of the major malicious activities are using LDAP, NSA, or RIM. So, Dan, would you like to add anything to this vulnerability portion of it?
Yeah, just to top up and just provide a little bit more clarification, it just started as a 0 day, but everyone needs to be clear that now there is patching. So
Oh,
please,
yeah.
everyone go out and do your patching. That's critically important. Also, um, just as of like yesterday, we do know that there's going to be already another CVE, even based on the latest patch, because they couldn't, fully, because of the time constraints involved and people very quickly trying to develop fixes. They kind of missed some things in the code, and under the latest CVE for this, which is 45046, there's some denial of service attack possibilities. Certainly not as high risk as this main one. Make sure that this main one gets patched. But there are you're going to require another update to what you just deployed. So you're supposed to be updating to version 2.14, but really now you're going to need version 2.15 shortly thereafter. So but the main thing is ensure that you've gotten at least this one done, because this is by far the highest and biggest risk. The other one right now, it seems to be just a DOS attack. However, because there's a lot of security researchers' eyes on it and a lot of bad guys' eyes on it, and because it's based on resource exhaustion to some degree, it could develop into a worse type of vulnerability and a similarly exploitable vulnerability as well. So I still pedal to the metal. You're still going to have to go back and do another update. And of course, to be clear, it's not that you're updating the library itself. You're going to have to update the applications which contain the library.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that will bring us to the why this is so dangerous point as well. So, Log4j is a commonly used Java library in, thousands of application and service. So it's on the back end. And if I'm not mistaken, typical scanning tools would only look at the metadata, but this vulnerability is on the backend, and it needs additional scanning portion of it. And this vulnerability is very easy to exploit. So if we scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the easiest, 10 being the hardest, I think we would rate this vulnerability 1 or 2, in my opinion. So Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, this has the highest score because it's trivial to exploit. Uh, it's trivial for the bad guys to deliver the necessary malicious code to basically take over any system which is public facing and allows connections to it. It will just very blindly, when you send the right type of crafted input, it will just blindly download malicious code and just get your whole system owned. And from there, it can stage all types of different types of attacks, and it allows adversaries to get in, move laterally. It's just basically a giant big backdoor to your entire system.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, and it is very pervasive, like we said. Applications have different versions of this library. There's many applications that could be concurrently running in a system, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just highly, highly, highly pervasive. Um, for sure, the biggest risk is on server side systems or backends. But the reality is, all depending, you might run into issues and risks on client side devices as well. Again, just thinking about a lot of the enterprise applications or internally developed applications that have been done over the last decade or so. There are many. So this is very, very, very pervasive. We can't say that enough.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And this is not only for remote code execution, but also attackers just put some information there to literally pull the information and for the information leakage. In my opinion, it's a high business impact for sure. And since there are limited patches and we are still trying to figure it out what this vulnerability is going to involve, I think that's really important to have a detection capabilities in place. So in case of exploitation. So and I believe this situation is dynamically changing. So it's like a moving target situation, and it impacts everyone, right?
That's correct. Yes. Certainly, our team internally, our threat intelligence research team, our security research teams, and everyone in security product R&D inside our organization has been very closely, monitoring um, what adversaries are going to be doing with this, and also anticipating, putting on the attacker's hat and understanding, if I was an attacker, what would I do with this, and how would I innovate on top of this in order to drop various types of malicious attacks and payloads and so on and so forth. And so it is about continually developing new types of detections that also anticipate the types of evasions attackers are going to be putting in order to get past a lot of the detections initially that you put in place for things of this nature, and then
Mhm.
just kind of monitoring what various threat actors are doing, right now, and live, across all of the systems we're protecting, what attempts they're making, and just further anticipating things. The other important thing to understand as well is this is going to have a very long tail.
Yeah.
Going to be a lot of applications that just don't get identified. Uh,
Hmm.
Certainly, using traditional means. There's a lot of application vendors that, quite frankly, and application builders that don't even know if they have this library because software supply chains are so complex today, and this is such a fundamental component
Hmm.
that it's really hard to know. That's why you need a belt and a suspender type approach to identifying the vulnerability. Certainly, you should
Hmm.
be scanning your environments from network and endpoint, but also you need to be doing some deeper level uh, code scans, as I call them, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in terms of the tool
Hmm.
that we've been putting in place and releasing for free to our customers in this area.
Yeah, definitely. So, with that, let's dive into how ArcticWolf responded to Log4j vulnerability. So, as soon as we heard about this, exploitation, as soon as that has been reported, ArcticWolf informed all the customers and started to search for the indicators of the compensation on their environment. And then what we did was we identified at-risk customers and start to work with them. And then we with the strong detection and exploitation in place, we spontaneously work on the deep scanning tool to identify the vulnerability. We tested and then validated the tool and then released it to our customers. And as we mentioned, since this vulnerability is continuously, evolving, continuously changing. ArcticWolf is continuing to monitor and research to overcome these threats upcoming weeks and months. So with that, then I have a couple of questions for you. So I think we touch up on the why this vulnerability is so dangerous. But do you have any personal opinion why this is so dangerous? Rather than what we just covered.
Yes, as we've noted, it's just very pervasive. It's going to be found across many
Mm-hmm.
types of applications, both known and unknown. There's going to be a very long tail to it because it
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes hard to detect in your environment, depending on where an application is,
Mm-hmm.
how deep behind the perimeter it is. We don't know how long this may have been known actually to certain parties. We don't know how long essentially it's been a 0 day for. It could have been known to certain threat actors, possibly for longer than before it became publicly known.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of gives you a lot of residual risk if someone has exploited it and they're in your environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's again a very key risk that we're worried about. The other thing too is because again it's so fundamental and it's so deep into your infrastructure, its exploitation is just very easy and is very potent, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as you're kind of outlining here, this response isn't that we kind of show in a linear line. Really, it's iterative. We're going to be doing this again and again for
Mm-hmm.
many iterations for our customers and all those that we're trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to continually be new tradecraft, new IOCs
Mm-hmm.
uh, that are going to be trying to exploit this, new evasions. This is just going to be like an ongoing
Mm-hmm.
activity for a while until it begins to essentially tailor off.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Dan, can you tell us a little bit about this new deep scanning tool that Arctic developed?
Sure. And again, this tool is again, I call it belt and suspenders type approach. We
Mm-hmm.
still want our customers using all of the traditional tooling we have and others have to do all of their scanning. But what we found was because a lot of the scanning technology and a lot of the signatures out there, they're essentially attributing the vulnerability based on, let's say, metadata that they're getting back from an application. And if, let's say, that particular application vendor has identified, the application as being vulnerable, they kind of declare it vulnerable on that basis, as an example. But the reality is, there's like this huge, that's just the tip of the iceberg. At the bottom, under the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
there's this entire collection of applications where this is not known. And so what we developed was essentially tooling, which
Mm-hmm.
is two simple scripts, which are highly portable for both Windows and Linux and Unix environments. Make use of all the kind of typically available tools you'll find in the operating systems, but kind of using them in clever ways, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they essentially go through the entire system looking for the target actual code that
Mm-hmm.
constitutes this vulnerability, and they do a deep code and class analysis, Java class analysis, to determine if truly you have the vulnerability. So it is a method of scanning which is based on ground truth. Hence, it's a deep scan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not kind of based on like indirect analysis methods. It's based on a direct method. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you want to be 100% sure, in
Mm-hmm.
addition to all the other good things that you're doing, this is like another tool to kind of aid in that defense and to get real ground truth. And of course, it emits log files, which can be easily collected and processed and aggregated by various types of monitoring tools and operational tools for analysis. And for our customers, we do collect the results and help through the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And what would you recommend IT and security people who aren't our, customers, but they need to deal this with vulnerability as a first step? So what they should do?
I think the very first thing, obviously, is I always tell folks, yes, like there's two things you got to do in parallel. You absolutely want to go through, scan your environment, try to identify
Mm-hmm.
your vulnerable assets and applications as quickly as possible. You want to determine if you can apply patching rapidly. You want to determine if you want to keep the application online or not.
Mm-hmm.
The risk is such that you can apply the application fast. Sometimes a decision to bring it offline if necessary, you do it, right? If that application has really critical data, or if the system, if it was to go down because of a ransomware attack, or many of the other many things that are possible, you have to make that determination quickly. Of course, there's other options like we've discussed that we provide to our customers, where there's essentially some runtime configurations you can write that temporarily render the asset and application immune to the attack, and you can work with our folks on that
Mm-hmm.
in tandem to the script that we provide. Um, that's also another option, but you have to see how it might affect your application. You have to do some quick testing. The other important thing is you absolutely need to have very strong MDR in place, because you're not going to be able to find, you can't assume you're going to find all instances of this. You
Mm-hmm.
can't assume you're going to find all instances of this before an adversary may have already done something in your environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have a strong capability, either within your organization or working through partners like ourselves or other many great organizations that are out there, um, to um, to be able to deter subsequent and later stages of a latent attack, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to detect it, and to be able to detect a lot of the post exploitation activities that would occur on the basis of someone having gotten into your environment and taken advantage of this.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, like we said in the beginning, this vulnerability is not a vulnerability that you can just patch and move on. It's just evolving, it's changing, and we are still not 100% sure what's the scope is. So that's why it's important to have for this specific use case, having a reactive approach to cybersecurity and then pair that up with proactive cybersecurity. So it's really it's really important to have both in place, specifically for this vulnerability, right?
That's right. You have to be ready to detect and respond, because you have to assume that you may have been breached, right? Because of how long this has been out there. So I think that's critically important for folks to understand. So identifying is important, but your detection and response pillar right now is going to be critically important. And in fact, that's why we prioritize that very much so within the organization, because we knew that no matter what, our customers weren't going to be able to patch in time. The window was going to be big, and so detecting and deterring early exploitation attempts and post exploitation attempts was going to actually be much more important in the process. And as we hit the long tail of this, um, when other threat actors like ransomware writers, nation states, um, look to exploit this in a deeper way, once all the noise is gone, that's when the detection and response elements of your security program are going to be alpha important, because I fear that it's the long tail element of this where the greatest impacts lie, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we need to be ready for. The other thing I want to top up with too, just based on some the latest threat intel, my team has been tracking. One of my teams have been tracking. A lot of vendors are communicating, "Hey, we're not vulnerable. Reuse an old version of a library." That's very dangerous, because the version of that, like the 1.x version of the library, is end of life, and it also has an older CVE that probably now probably didn't get a lot of attention at the time, but now adversaries are going to go look at that, and turning that into an RCE may not be far off. And
Definitely.
so yeah, like I think the industry needs to kind of focus in on some operational security, because the information we leak or indirectly leak without thought. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's adversaries that are listening to that right now and kind of gearing up. So what I would tell you is, do not take false comfort in the fact that you're running end of life software. You should be even more concerned. You need to be, if there's an application vendor that is not giving you an update, you should like really strongly consider telling them I'm going to be shutting down this application. Lastly, I do want to emphasize as well that you put in strong network controls. There's a lot of things that you can be doing to block this attack in terms of like outbound access and a whole bunch of things. We do have some bulletins, in this area that get to a lot of the details, far more details than what I can describe here and now. Um, I'd encourage people, if they're interested, those can be provided to our customers. Obviously, they've already gotten them, but if you haven't, read them, go back and read them. To our
Yep.
prospective customers and partners, please do request those bulletins because there is like a wealth of knowledge and basically a roadmap to
Mhm.
doing a lot to protect you in this process.
Yeah, that's fantastic insight, and we really appreciate it. I actually have one more slide to go through, and then we will take, a couple of questions. We are, running out of time, but I'll try to go through this one as best as I can. So, article has focused on the operational side of the approach on the cybersecurity since we founded. So, we have proven that security is solid at it's not a solid, tool problem or staffing problem. We know that it's an operationalized problem. Whether other aspects of the business are defining the platform to deliver the authorized source of the truth, IT and cybersecurities are falling due to the lack of comprehensive systems of record. So ArcticWolf Security Operation Cloud is answer to that problem. So power of the ArcticWolf Security Operation Cloud is how we operate with your existing security tools. So ArcticWolf has been built on a open source XDR architecture, and this basically integrates with the existing tools, so you are not tied to one vendor or one ecosystem, so and it doesn't lead to a rip and replace kind of situation with the existing tools. We are using architecture to provide the detection across the full spectrum of the security events and data source. So and this removes the need for you to choose the data source that are important or not. So allowing you to enrich, analyze, and service anomalies, threats, and incidents using the data scientists as well as the artificial intelligence on top of the human analyst teams. So we'll leverage the ArcticWolf platform with our concierge delivered model. So this is the approach where we look your system, and then we tailor our platform and services according to your needs, our customer needs. So if they need specific detection tailoring or environmental needs, we just pair with our customers with the team of security experts, and they are not only monitoring your data but also they are utilizing the article platform and learning about your organization, your unique requirements, so we can maximize your effectiveness in your environment. So this will allow us to deliver a critical outcome across the whole security operation framework. So you over here, you're gonna see three, bolded, sections. So those are our main products. So manage detection and response provided 24/7 monitoring of your network, endpoint, and cloud environment to help detect your response and recovery from the modern attacks. Your dedicated concierge security team works with you to build and execute your security journey to making sure that your organization goals and objectives would meet with your, the direction that you would like to go. And our ultimate goal is to straighten your security posture over time. Addition to that, we have add-on modules like cloud detection and response and log search for the MDR solution. We also have managed risk uh, solution, which is continuously scan your network, endpoint, cloud environment to discover and qualify the digital risks, such as vulnerabilities, system misconfiguration, account takeover, and many more. Our goal is to making sure that over time your security posture is straightened, and we have an add-on module for cloud security posture module to discover and benchmark and harden your cloud environment. And lastly, we have many security awareness. Prepare your employees, because we know that 85% of the ransomware attack is a result of human errors. So because of that, it's really important to have that component in your organization as well. So ArcticWolf Security Operation Cloud ensures that we deliver critical outcomes across the security operation framework, protecting our customers from threats and ultimately helping them in their efforts to end cyber risk. With that, I'm going to open up the floor for some questions because we are running out of time. So let me see, what do we have here? So I don't have an application with Java, but third-party vendor has this vulnerability. Should I be worried? Is it possible to get into my environment? Dan, what do you think?
Um, well, again, I would say you should always be worried about who can get into your environment. It's not just over this particular one vulnerability and its exploitation. This is definitely a Java targeted vulnerability.
Mhm.
But what I will tell you, a lot of applications can make embedded use of Java. It's not always advertised. So again, unless you've done like a really detailed analysis and actually have looked at the application files, that's probably the only. If you're really worried about something, that's the only way to kind of get that assurance. Just because you will find this everywhere.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, if a vendor is telling you something, you should pay attention to that. But if it's super critical and it's really affecting critical data to your organization, uh,
Mhm.
you should be, if you have suspicions, you should absolutely be verifying that and still
Mhm.
getting the protection that you need.
Mhm. Mhm. I am gonna take one more question. So, can I just remove this library from my environment? I would say I wouldn't recommend it, but what do you say then?
I wish it was. I wish. I truly, truly wish it was that easy. uh, so again, two things to reinforce: this component in any application is super critical to its functioning. So if you were to just arbitrarily remove it, you would literally just cause the application to crash and go offline in all likelihood. Like that's your highest probability. It just won't work. It's logging functionality, right? Applications depend on that. If again, you can contact ArcticWolf if you're a customer. We have ways and guidance on how to essentially render the exploitation of the vulnerability inert in identified applications. There are settings you can push down through your various automation and package management systems. So there's things you can do that probably make more sense rather than trying to rip it out. Second thing is, no, you cannot like individually upgrade the library that's affected, because again, it's so intrinsic and embedded in the application or the system at hand
Mhm.
that you would cause it to fail. Um,
Mhm.
so the only thing that can really happen, and unfortunately, and this is what makes it such a difficult issue, and why there's going to be so many vulnerable instances of this in one system,
Mhm.
is that the application vendor needs to update the whole application and ensure that it's using the latest non-vulnerable library.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate you being here as well as the conversation, the information that you shared. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I think all of our audience members today that gave us some of their precious time.
Fantastic. So, with that, we would just come to the end of our LinkedIn webinar. And thanks everyone for joining us. Again, we will be having this recording on our resource center, and we'll see you next time. So, good luck with the Log4j vulnerability.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.